customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Hi there, and welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast with John DiJulius. I'm Denise Thompson, managing partner of the DiJulius Group. And if you've ever seen John present live on stage, you may have heard some fantastic stories about his son's wrestling. Today's podcast guest brings a special connection to the sport. Tom Ryan is the championship head coach of the Ohio State University wrestling team. He's also the author of Chosen Suffering, Becoming Elite in Life and Leadership. Tom is passionate about transforming ordinary lives into elite champions. As an All-American college wrestler, he embraced his fair share of chosen suffering. But it wasn't until he and his wife Lynette suffered the sudden death of their 5-year-old son Teague that they encountered unchosen suffering. Through this tragedy, they found their faith and a process to push through the pain. In today's podcast, you'll hear Tom discuss the collision of chosen and unchosen suffering. He opens up about how he overcame his personal unchosen suffering, gives perspective on how to prepare when unchosen suffering comes along, and how two people can work their way out of a slump and change direction. You'll also hear about the 3 success pillars and find out what it means when he says, positive infinite crashes any pity party. Now here's your host for the Customer Service Revolution podcast, John DiJulius.
Welcome, revolutionaries. This is John DiJulius, Chief Revolution Officer of the DiJulius Group, and I'm excited for another episode of the Customer Service Revolution, where we have the head coach of Ohio State Wrestling, Coach Tom Ryan. Welcome, Tom.
Good to be with you, John.
Great to have you. Great to have you. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff going on, and your new book, your first book, About Time. I've been, bugging you for, almost 2 decades now that you needed to get a book out, this story. Tell us the title of your book and kind of a high-level summary about it.
Yeah, so the book's titled Chosen Suffering, Becoming Elite in Life and Leadership. And I would just say it's basically, it's a journey, right? It's been my journey of dealing with some unchosen sufferings and chosen sufferings and the way I've navigated through them and the lessons I've learned. So I've got some stories in there and just basically that journey.
And the book just came out and I can't wait. I haven't gotten to read it, but at the time of this podcast, I didn't get to read it yet, but I know a lot of the story. I got to see some of it live for the past 15 years and know a lot of it. And all I could say is it's about time. Your story is motivating. It applies to all areas of the life. So tell me, Tom, what chosen suffering, becoming elite in life and in leadership, what does chosen versus unchosen mean?
Yeah, so I think life is riddled with things that we want no part of, that come our way, that are painful, but offer tremendous learning. Obviously, I mean, as friends, I know the unchosen suffering that you and your family have dealt with. So unchosen suffering are just things. It's like, hey, I don't want any part of that, but they happen to us. It's a fallen world. And unfortunately, we're here to navigate through some really painful things that we don't ask for. That's pretty much unchosen suffering. And I think anyone who lives long enough, no question, will have to learn how to pull out things to help them move forward through things that they want no part of, unchosen suffering. And then there's chosen suffering. And these are things that good and bad that we choose, that we bring our way, that hopefully we learn from. But chosen suffering are things that we ask for, whether good or bad. We choose them and they take us down a path that sometimes is great for us and sometimes chosen suffering is really bad for us.
Can you give me an example of a chosen suffering that's bad?
Yeah. So chosen suffering that's bad would be simply, we choose. What do we choose, right? We know we have millions of choices in a lifetime, many choices in a given day. But, some of us in the midst of something challenging choose to move toward things that are not productive for us, right? And usually those things, I don't know, it could be alcohol, drugs. It could be, relationships that are unhealthy. We're choosing to stay in relationships that don't build us up and break us down. So on a fundamental, it could be something much more similar than that, right? It's choosing too much sugar in our life, right? It's choosing to not have simple habits that we know will help us get from point A to point Z. And then there's chosen suffering that's just good for us.
Like,
it's like Johnny DiJulius, choosing to run 5 miles in the morning. It's painful. It's not comfortable when it's 30 degrees out and you get up and you go run anyway. Biking 20 miles. Just things that we choose that are hard. I mean, because it's just, I think, history shows, and I think you're right. You said it years ago to me, right? Success leaves clues. And I think if you look at any successful person's life, there's heartache often. There's some choices that weren't good. There were some choices that were great. Most people that climb really high, I think they understand suffering, that this is going to be difficult. Right. I think looking at anyone, your business, it's not like, I think the world kind of shares with us, you can go from A to Z in a minute. And that's just ridiculous. Right. You look at anybody that's successful, there's been a lot of chosen suffering, things that are really difficult. So, that's kind of the premise of the book.
So the pandemic is unfortunately, a great example of unchosen suffering, right?
Absolutely.
I was talking to a CEO the other day, and he said, nowhere did that show up on my SWOT analysis.
Right.
Yeah, the pandemic or, whatever those things come in, and that's why I love this book. Again, the book's long overdue. I wanted you to quit, wasting your talents at this day job and get out and share with the world,
Yeah. I know you've been pushing me.
What's that?
I know you were pushing me.
Well, you got great messages. And one of the things about it is, you've always been such a student of success, and you consume books. You're always telling me about great books to read, and you've been around amazing people, like Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer and, Dan Gable, the Babe Ruth of wrestling, and so many others. And so I'm assuming you're the 3 success pillars. Where did those come from? And tell us what they are.
I think that, for most of us, right, I would say kind of what you do that's so unique is that you're able to take something that it would seem so obvious, but take it and share it in a very digestible way, right? You can teach something in a way like, wow, that's so simple, but so brilliant, right? So the fundamentals are just so incredibly important. Any great teacher I've been around, listen, your son, right? We use John, he's a great wrestling teacher. He can teach wrestling because you can share it in a way that kids are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's very digestible for me. And, success pillars are, one is just the people that we choose to surround ourselves with, right? How powerful it is that, there's a lot of books where you're the reflection of the 5 people you spend the most time with, but it's so true that we've got a big supporter named Jack Miller that helps Ohio State wrestling a ton. He's become a really good friend. And he does a lot of prison ministry work. He lives up in Worcester, Ohio, really successful in the gas and oil industry and piping industry, Miller Piping. And, he said to me, so he does a lot of work in the prison ministry. And he said, we asked these guys and girls, a simple question like, when did it go wrong? When did life become, this? When did you notice life started to move in this direction, this negative direction? And like he said, all of them start with this. There was just this one guy I started to hang around. Mm-hmm. This one person I just started to hang around. And the next thing you find yourself, right? It's never 0 to 100. It's always like a small incremental bad decision. And then there's another one and another. Before you know it, you're so far off course. I think maybe you had us read The Principle of the Path. I don't know, it might have been you that recommended that Andy Stanley, The Principle of the Path, and how, every decision is leading us in a direction. Now, you can acknowledge the direction you're going or not, but you're going in a direction, and that direction absolutely has an outcome. And every decision you make is leading you closer to that outcome. So just people, just the power of people,
That's number
and
one, right?
choosing. Yeah, people.
And let me just jump in there on that,
Yeah.
because
It's not necessarily number one, but it's one of three. It's one of three.
Okay. And
So I don't know if
love
it's priority order.
the people and where you're going here. You've heard the old quote, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room, right?
Yes.
Similarly, I don't want to be the highest character person in the room, right? That's not necessarily good. Like, you've met my friends, Uncle Eddie, right? And people
Uncle
like
Eddie's
that.
the man.
Right.
Ed and Kathy, they're the best.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do brag. The one thing I brag about is the people I surround myself with. I'm the weakest character in the room, which makes me like nervous. Like, I got to raise my game or they're going to dump me.
Yeah.
And I always say, I look at, like, if we go out for a beer, and this is like how I judge people, or who I want to surround myself with. And I say, Tom, I promised Claudia I got to be home by like 8, right? Okay, good.
Yeah.
And then we have a beer. And then, it's 7:15. We're about to, order another one. And, you have two types of friends. The one friend that says, hey, John, didn't you say you had to be home by 8? And I think if you leave now, you can make it. And then you have the other friend that says, screw it. She'll get over it. Let's right. Or let's go for a workout. Or don't you have a big test tomorrow? Can I help you with that? Or whatever that may be. And we got to be the same person back to, our friends. So I love that.
No, that's really powerful. I mean, it's so simple, but it's so powerful because, again, it's leading you in a direction. So people, obviously, you know this and I know this, and just people matter. I mean, people really matter.
All right, number 2 of your success principles.
Environment, right? We choose, environments are made up of people, but environments can really move us forward. And I use the example, right, for me of, I guess, two environments. And both were good, but one was elite, right? And not being afraid to live a mundane, fear is such a debilitator, right? It can be a motivator as well, but fearful motivation isn't long lived, right? I mean, fear motivates, like dad scares you. Listen, don't do that, and I don't do it for a little while, then I forget and I do it again, or you're driving down the road, you almost fall asleep, you wake up, and then 50 miles down the road you're falling asleep again, right? So, but fear can motivate, but love is obviously the greatest motivator. But environments are so critically important to our growth, and they're filled with just even the small analogy you just gave about, when I went to the University of Iowa, the environment was so uplifting, right? I was not the best wrestler in the room. This place was filled with hungry people that wanted more for their life and were not willing to.
At the time, when you were in college, Iowa still is very good, but at the time they were the New York Yankees of college wrestling, and you were an elite, high school wrestler. But when you go to, into a room like Iowa, you're nobody. Yeah.
I was insignificant. Right. And I think the truth is, and I know we're talking about in environments, but environments share truth. Right. And anybody that's going to climb really high in anything, they hunger for truth. Right. Because until you get truth, there's no way to assess anything. Right. Assess where we are. Where am I in relation to the elite wrestlers in the country? Right? Where am I in relation to the top business people? Where am I, in relation to whatever it is? Relationships can't move forward without truth, right? And we've all been in relationships where there wasn't truth, and we've all been hurt by that. And we shake our heads, and we all long for people that will just tell us the truth in a loving way, right? Not in a way to diminish someone else or make them smaller. And none of us are perfect at that. But environments, what environments do is they share, like people, they share truth, and that's a fundamental building block to moving forward. So, leaving, one place, Syracuse wrestling there, which I loved it there. There were great people there, but Iowa gave me truth, right? Iowa shared with me that room, that environment, shared with me that I was not nearly as good as I thought I was, that I was not nearly as close to being elite as I thought I was, that I wasn't nearly as fit as I thought I was, that I, I could have just shrugged it off and been like, well, the way, an improper way of thinking, but I was I was honest with myself and looked in the mirror and said, you know what? You said you wanted this. Now it's time to do it. And so environments are just critical, right? Putting ourselves under fire, putting ourselves under duress is really important.
Is environment
and being willing to fail.
The culture you build as a leader?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So environment, right? Environment. Yeah, it is culture, right? It is culture. It is the culture of the organization that you're in. And it will either build you or make you realize that I'm not willing to work hard enough to attain what I said I wanted to attain. Right. Sometimes that's it, right? It's the truth of, wow. I remember when I was thinking about wrestling at the next level, it was a big boy conversation. I could have pretended and hung on and told everybody I was training for the Olympic team. But the reality was that I didn't think I could make it. I didn't want to make it. It didn't mean enough to me to make it. It was too hard. I had to do too many things to make it happen. And the truth was I should move into coaching. Right. So, I think just being really honest with ourselves is so hard and so important. But to your point, a strong culture should at least bring honesty. Then it's up to each person in it to make that decision that this is what I want. I said I wanted this. This is good for me. I know it's going to be hard, but I'm gonna bury myself in what's needed to enhance this culture.
All right. And number 3?
So number 3 is most simply put, success pillar is this mindset, right? What it is, which could be 1, right? So there are three, but everything starts between the 6-inch space between our ears. And it's our worldview, right? It's our why. It's what's important to us. No, I mean, it's hard to move forward. And I know you know this because you live it, right? But it's hard to move forward until you know what it is you stand for and what it is you want and what it is that you're going to, cower to and what it is that you're not going to cower to. And so mindset is so critically important because until we know that, right, we won't enhance a culture. We won't move to the right environment. We won't surround ourselves with the right people until we say, listen, this is who I am. And this is my worldview. And this is who I'm going to be no matter what, whether the guy tells me to stay out another 3 hours or 2 hours, even though I told my wife I'd be home earlier or not. And it's our mindset and building our mindset that is so fundamentally important. And the world tells us one thing, right? The world tells us to take shortcuts and move this way and it'll be okay if you veer off course. And of course we all have, right? I can list the many times I have. There's every time that we choose right and feed the right things, we get stronger. And every time we feed the wrong things, we get weaker. And ultimately, they lead us to a place. So,
listen, those are simple people, environment, mindset, but they're a lot harder said than done, right? I mean,
yeah, right.
All those things.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, yeah. They're very hard. I mean, it's chosen suffering. It's very hard. It's chosen. It's you got to choose. And I think chosen suffering is so drastic. That's why I chose it. It's drastic. And look, it's like chosen suffering. And it could just be right. Another word for it is just love. The things that I love the most, I pour the most time into. It's simple. And we should know those things. It's like, I don't want to be on my deathbed and then someone asks me, what were the most valuable things in your life? And they inspect my life and they're like, well, you say that, but look at the minutes you put in each area.
Right.
Right. Look what you poured into. Right. So chosen suffering is the only chosen suffering I've ever done was the things I love the most. Right. Like you at the drop of a hat, if your son needed something, you'd be there at the drop of a hat. Listen, I got to cancel. I got to go. My daughter's moving to Portland. I'm clearing my schedule. It doesn't matter what else is going on. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be there for her and she's going to know that her dad will always be there for her. Right. Iowa wrestling. Right. I left a full scholarship. I was on a full scholarship. My parents were paying nothing. I took out some loans. I figured it out and chosen suffering was just another way of saying Tom Ryan really loves wrestling and Tom Ryan really wants to be the best wrestler in the country. And it's more important than the money. Now, I'm not saying that every person can do that, right? It's not like, well, let me just disregard all the responsibilities I picked up along the way and throw them away and just jump into this. No, there's got to be a strategy, an exit strategy. Listen, my dad made some money. My dad could help me. Mom couldn't. dad could. And I talked to dad about it, mom, and they said, listen, go, we'll be there for you. We'll take out some loans. I can help you out. I can give you a couple $100 a month and we'll make it work. It wasn't a reckless decision. It was a well-planned decision that was fueled by love. So that ultimately, I think, is what chosen suffering is. And listen, if we choose drugs and abuse ourselves, ultimately, in one way or another, to me, you're saying, listen, this is more important to me. This is important to me. And I know I've had people in my life that have dealt with addiction. It's terribly challenging, but we got to come up with something that we love more than what we're doing. That's how you break it. Something has to have a greater meaning. And often that's what it is, right, John? It's like people are so low. They're like, this is all life has to offer. And when you hit rock bottom, it's like, okay, I'm going to change this. I'm going to make some choices in my life and I'm going to rise above this. And I know it's hard. And obviously it's hard to all the people around the people that are struggling because you can't love them enough. They got to choose it. Right. So anyway, I'm rambling a bit.
No, I like that. And to that point, how do you help someone, that's choosing the wrong suffering? And, me and you are high motivated people and we have a positive filter, that anything comes into our brain, we're going to make it into the best thing ever. And, and not everyone looks at it that way. And so I find myself, I have a hard time understanding people that don't always spin it and pivot and find the best opportunity, where I'm almost, I'm bad in a way for them because I'm just like, Tom, pull up your socks. Right. I mean,
right.
So how have you found, whether it's addiction, you've had hundreds of young men under your supervision and, with all the talent in the world and some, like a lot of us, made stupid decisions when we were young in college and, some, never got out of those stupid decisions ended up defining them. Right.
Sure.
Or it's a relative or whoever. Have you found a better way to help them when they don't have the same DNA as you do of processing things?
Yeah. I think, for me to say I'm above stupid decisions, right, would be unfair, right? Through the course of my 51 years of life, I made some decisions and looking back, if someone judged me, in the moment of my worst decision, right? And that's, and I didn't forgive myself of that decision, right? You can carry that with you for life and it just wears us down. Right, the bag would get so heavy, right? Of every decision I made, that was like, why did you do that, right? But I think there are strategies, right? And you know a lot of strategies because you've raised really successful kids, and obviously truth is just really important. Truth and love, I think the two they've got to be coupled. Truth to beat someone down is just beating them down, right? But truth out of, look, I really love you, and I'm trying to help you. I think small gains, right? Small gains. No one goes from, homeless, friendless to, the life of the party and really successful overnight. So we set up scenarios where people can have, marginal gain, just a little bit of improvement, right? And feel good about it, right? Something to feel good about. So, I think those are probably just, some strategies that when you're in a dark place and being with them. I know that there were times in your life where there was immense pain, and the same with me. And when you're in a dark place, all you can think about, it's hard to imagine a better life when you're in a dark place. Simply, all I want to be able to do is breathe. When someone's just really struggling, it's like, listen, I can't fathom being as successful as DiJulius or Ryan. I just want to breathe. I just want to put one foot in front of the other and try to find a way out of this mess. And it's just marginal gain, just making one good decision. Just clean up your life. Just clean up your space. Just put your dishes away. Just wake up on time. Just start by waking up. Say you're going to wake up at 7 and wake up at 7. Just, wake up at 7 and then I'm going to walk a mile, and do it over time. And start to feel good about some things that you're doing in your life, because it's easy to just beat ourselves up, and the world wants to beat us up. The world wants us to make mistakes, and then the world wants to make fun of us over it. The world wants to dangle stuff in front of us that feels so good and tastes so good, right? And then when we choose the apple, it wants to beat us down and make fun of us like it's not possible for, how could you do that? And I think a lot of people that really struggle, I think, is just guilt. Guilt just weighs you down. And it's like, I have a really strong faith in God, and God says, if you can't forgive yourself, you're basically throwing me aside, because I'm telling you, I forgive you. I don't care what you've done. I'm telling you, I forgive you. And ultimately, if we can't forgive ourselves, we're saying to him that my way is greater than your way, right? That my thinking is greater than your thinking. You've told me that you forgive me, but I can't forgive myself, which puts us in a position of authority over the creator of all things, which is just not a good place to be.
Right.
So yeah, and even so, right? Even when sometimes we do everything right and we do everything right, people still choose to hurt. They still choose the wrong way. We just keep sharing truth with them and keep sharing love with them and keep building into them, and hopefully at some point, because we've been around people that struggle like that. We can't lift them out of it, right? Their mind, their why has to become greater than the thing that they're loving right now, right? They've got to find love in something greater than the addiction, whatever it is they're choosing. So, man, I wish it was easy, right, man? It's so hard. Life's so hard.
I love you, Tom. You have you say this: positive infinity crashes any pity party. I love that, because if you listen right now, I even find myself from time to time catching myself in a pandemic, saying, "Woe is me! This really screwed up my plans this year." Right. And, whatever, which is, I know God's way of laughing at us making plans. But what does that mean to you? Positive infinity crashes any pity party.
Yeah. So that's a chapter in the book, and it's been just a chapter of my life. And that's, the reality is, if we think for a second that we're going to get out of this life unscathed, we're crazy, right? If we think for a second that we're going to not experience things that are really hard, that we're living by the wrong set of guidelines, right? That it's going to happen. Tough things are going to happen. It's a matter of when or why. And when they do, staying positive is so ungodly important, right? And it's not easy to do. And it goes again back to, if you've got a good network of people and friends and wise people around you, and it's not that, feeling sorry for ourselves. We all do. Right? I had a rough morning this morning. I get up every morning. I have a routine. I get up. I wear a 50-pound weight jacket. I'll walk 5 to 6 miles with my dogs. And I had some just news, the whole Big Ten canceling football thing, and how's that going to affect wrestling? And I'm thinking about my guys, and I can't be around my guys. And loneliness is just problem filled, right? And that's what this pandemic has done. It's causing some people loneliness. It's right. It's like the infection is killing a certain amount of people, but loneliness will kill far more, right? Stealing people's dreams or having dreams taken from us is far more painful and devastating than maybe getting the infection, right? So I just had a rough morning, and I was just feeling sorry for myself, right? And you just need people around you. You're an uplifting guy, right? So your son's up, my son's up, just uplifting. We work off each other, right? When I'm feeling, like a little pity party, someone comes along and shares just positive infinity that, look, no matter what, here are the things in your life that are really special.
And that goes back to the people and environment.
People and environment. Yeah. Just people and environment. Just telling you, constantly self-talking ourselves into being positive. I mean, it's like, what successful organization, individual has ever come from a series of just constant negative thoughts? What greatness has ever, so we got to catch ourselves in it. And it's like positive infinity. What's infinity? To the end, to no matter what, being negative is never going to move you forward. Now, being realistic is not being negative. That's just being realistic, right? It's just being real about the situation. So positive infinity is just, I heard it, the team, I think you might have helped. I don't know if you helped us with this. if you were helping at the time or not, but it was a couple of guys were on the bike and they were in advanced math class. As we know, there are some wrestlers that are really smart. We have some wrestlers that are just great wrestlers, right? So this group that happened to be on the bike, one next to another, they were talking about this math class and being positive. It's like positive infinity, right? Positive infinity. And it's just a phrase and it can mean whatever you want it to mean. But I think ultimately for me, it just means that, nothing in my life ever really progressed by being so negative about it. And I've never uplifted anybody. And I have at times, there are times when you catch yourself like, wow, that was too negative, right? But ultimately, positive infinity, it's a simple phrase that will lead us in a better place than negative infinity will.
Hey, Tom, I'm sure you've heard the have to versus get to.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love this. You've had to have heard this, but it's like,
Yeah.
Tom, what are you and Lynette doing this weekend? Well, we have to help Mackenzie move, or we have to attend Jake's soccer tournament when he was younger or whatever. No, you get to, right?
It's powerful. I love that. Yeah.
It is. I mean, like every word we say to ourselves, to me, that's positive infinity. I got to get to bed because I have to walk the dogs 5 miles tomorrow. Like, no, you get to. When people would love to be able to put a 50-pound weight on their body at 51 and be able to walk 5 miles, be able to walk a half a mile. You get to, and you've earned that.
Yeah.
Right. But it's
that's really powerful.
Yeah, I love
that's
that.
so good. That's so good.
Another one I that you made me think of is I have certain pet peeves that kind of send me off. And it's like, hey, how you doing? And, when someone responds, okay, fine. So far, so good. And it's like, 7 a.m. Well, what do you mean so far, so good? Like, what are you waiting to happen? Right. I mean,
right.
And,
right. Incredible. Just say incredible. Just talk yourself into incredible.
There was, I looked this up. This is how sick my mind is. I looked this up. 175,000 people will die today. Right? 2,700 people will find out that they have cancer today. Right? And then some other horrible statistics of, sexually abused every hour, like crazy stuff. And, I like when someone tells me that they're okay, so far so good. I'm like, do you fall into any one of those categories? Right? I mean, like, if you don't, you're pretty damn lucky. Like, and that's the positive infinity of like, damn, I'm blessed.
Yeah. And that's the power of just people again listen, I'm sharing truth with you. What are you complaining about? You got it so good.
Right.
But some people just won't, you're around enough people that are negative and they'll never share truth with you like that.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how life changes when we just flip the switch to the other direction.
Well,
and you get to rather than I have to.
And why this book is it's timely with the pandemic. It's just timely, in life in general. And the reason why, I've encouraged you to get it out there for so long is you're not just someone theorizing and pointing a finger and judging. You're not doing any of that, but you've had your chosen and unchosen suffering. And on the surface, it's like, God, Tom Ryan has it all, right? Beautiful family, beautiful wife, great marriage of how many years, Tom?
25, going on 26.
26 years.
Yeah. And listen, great marriage filled with challenges, right? It's like, anyone says like everything's just perfect. Listen, it's hard. It's hard. Let me set you up, right?
Amazing kids, gorgeous kids.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
The most polite kids. You are an NCAA champion wrestling coach. You hoisted that trophy on ESPN. I mean, all these things are great, but you and your Lynette and your family have endured one of the most tragic things that I think any human being can endure. And I say this all the time. I lost my wife, and no one would ever want that, but it doesn't compare to losing a child. And you lost a 5-year-old Teague, a beautiful young boy. So you're not just talking about it, and so, when you go through something like that, how do you not, and maybe you did for a while, but how do you not crawl, up into the fetal position and say, woe is me.
Yeah.
This isn't fair. How did you either avoid it or snap out of it?
Yeah. I would say that, you got my mind racing all over the place, but, first, I think it's hard for anyone to truly understand something that they haven't been through themselves, right? So that's like life rule number one for me. Like, I don't know what it's like to lose a wife the way you lost your wife, right? I don't know what it's like, I try to empathize and I try to understand it, but until we've actually experienced it ourselves, it's just hard to do, right? It's hard for me to understand what it was like for Colin Moore, right? Ranked number one in the country, to lose his, senior year 7 days before, right? And I don't want to be the guy that, my pain is so much greater than your pain, and right? So because we all just deal with stuff that just suck, right? And then there's a suck at a level, right? There's difficult, right? There's difficult, and then there's tragic, and tragic, and I know tragic. And tragic was, the loss of my 5-year-old, who I thought was an extremely healthy son, to a massive heart attack at the dinner table. And I know the story, just for your listeners, that it was beyond painful. It was catastrophic in my life. It was, it was a nuclear warhead slamming into my front door, and me trying to pick up the pieces and rebuild a life. He had 2 older brothers that were young, 11 and 8. Teague was 5. Mackenzie was 3. He had a mother. He had friends. He had siblings. He had aunts and uncles and cousins. He had, schoolmates. He had teachers that loved him. And he had a dad that would gladly have traded places with him, right? I mean, every child deserves someone that would die for them. And that's the role, to some degree, of parenthood, right? That there's nothing that we wouldn't do for you. And sometimes love is not doing something for them that they want us to do for them, right? So it's not always just soft and mushy. It's tough. And the pain was something that, it's like understanding, how to win a national title in wrestling. Well, you can't really understand until you put yourself under duress time and time again, right? So it's hard to understand, share in words what it's like to lose a child the way we did. And all I was trying to do was breathe. And I said this earlier, but the pain was so deep. I was curled up in a ball. My wife wasn't sure, right, whether she wanted to live or not. And at some point, and the environment got me through this, people got me through it, faith got me through it, really thinking about why I'm here and how I got here helped me through it. Is God real or not? Because there's 2 options: either he is or he isn't. And we all pick a side, right? You don't leave the planet without picking a side. And I talked about it, and I listened to people that were honest and truthful with me, and in their opinions of things. You eventually pick a side. And what I did was I took a piece of paper. On the left side, I put God. On the right side, I put no God. And this was a faith walk for me. And was he here by accident? Was he here? Was his life purposeful? Was he the end result of chance? Was he created in the image of God? And there's a lot of information out there for us to study. And ultimately, at the end of studying it, we have to choose. It's like, hey, John DiJulius needs a new car. His car broke down. He's got 7 kids. Well, a Corvette's not going to be such a wise decision, right? So John gathers all this information about vehicles. This one has this one has that. This one can know a lot of people. And then we choose. And for me, during this, terrible time, I studied evolution and I studied God. And ultimately, I had to decide between the 2. Either God created everything or nothing created everything. And I'm not here to impose, right, my faith in anybody, right? But ultimately, I came to the realization for me that Jesus was who he said he was, and that I'm going to choose that God is real. And that really helped me move forward. Now, I would have moved forward anyway, right, John? I mean, I would have moved forward, right? I would have, I was in such misery. And I think we all know the facts on marriages that break up, children that become somewhat wayward children, right? Because the parents are in so much pain that they forget they have other children, and they're so self-absorbed with the pain that they're in that they can never they can never find their way out of it, and their children are somewhat forgotten. What I did was, obviously I looked at faith. I surrounded myself with people that share truth with me. I got counseling. I mean, counseling, the right counseling is really important. And well, you're a tough wrestling coach. Yeah, I'm a tough wrestling coach. I'm a tough guy. I know I'm a tough guy, but I also knew that I needed someone to share with me because I was in a place that I was lost. And this person said, Tom, that your kids are going to react to this in direct proportion to the way you do. So ultimately, they told me that example is our greatest teacher. That you better be an example through this, because your example, they're going to follow. They're likely going to follow your example. And if you can't get yourself to move forward, they're going to be stuck as well. And, they want to go to amusement parks. They want to laugh. And just because I couldn't, it doesn't mean that they didn't need to. Right. And, you just, back to people and back to environments and back to mindset. And I just, loving them was more important to me than me feeling sorry for myself. And ultimately, that's what got me through it. Right. That they needed someone to love them and they needed someone to be there for them. And I cared about that more than curling up in a ball and numbing myself with things that would only hurt everybody around me.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. It's powerful. And I knew that, and listen, I know where you were at the time. And so, I got to believe you became unselfish and it's not wrong, but selfish is to curl up in the ball, say, woe is me, and all those things, justifiable if you want. But
yeah,
you got a wife that needs you. Right. And it just as you needed her at the time and still do. But you got other children. You got wrestlers that, gave up other choices to, wrestle for you. You had, a wrestling community. You had, you had people that would have suffered had Tom Ryan chosen to be, the lesser version of his best version.
Yeah. Yeah. And John, it's like, right. And John, we're just having a conversation here now. It's just like, what does life look like if you just stay in a ball? Like, what is that worth? Like just curling up and not hunting for a way out of it. I mean, what does that cause? Who wants to live that life? So that, that's a piece of it's like, well, this sucks, right? Staying in this space sucks. I mean, I'm not staying here. What is my way out of it? And a lot more good comes from finding ways out of things than just settling in the way it is.
Do you have
and I wasn't willing to do that.
Whether it's like the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
9/11, the Great Recession, as far as being a business owner or our personal tragedies. I tell people, even in this pandemic, I say, listen, if I'm fortunate enough to, be in business another 20 or 30 years, I'm going to, have 3 or 4, more crises, right? I mean, and in our personal lives, right? Shit is going to happen. Unchosen suffering is going to happen.
Yeah.
That I almost, and like, this is, probably, warped, and I don't know if you're the same. I almost picture the worst stuff that could possibly happen. Just so, and again, it's some sick shit, right? But
no, but it's so baseline. It gives you a baseline.
Right.
It gives you a baseline of this is how bad it could get. Right. And I think about this, John. It's like, listen, take everything from me. Look, you've done well. You've worked hard. You've helped a lot of people, right, in the process of the success you've had. Right. You've helped me. Right. There's a lot of people along your path you've helped. Listen, I think you can take everything from me. If I lost everything monetarily, right, everything, right, what do I have? Right, what do I have? And what I have is at the core of who I am. Right, ultimately, the worst case is I lose everything. Who am I? Can I look in the mirror? Right, and because I think when we're and it's easy to get caught up in this when we're so driven by materialistic things, right, and then we lose them. Well, what do you got now? What relationships you have? What do you have? Because inherently, we're here to be in relationship, right? We're here, and we're built, we're made to be in relationship, which is why this pandemic is so challenging because we're now Zooming. We're not connecting as much as we were. At the end of the day, for me, it's like, okay, I love this nice house I live in, right? I love this car I drive. But ultimately, I want to believe this, right? And I hope I'm speaking the truth when I say this. I don't know until it would happen, but put me in a tent, give me the people I love, and I'll find my way out of it, and I'll be fine. None of the things I like having nice things, right? I like having a look at a lake in my backyard, right? But ultimately, if you take that from me, there are things that stand above that. And I think as human beings, we've got to know what those things are, right? We've got to know what those things are that we build our life around. Otherwise, we get caught in the world's view of things. And when these things get taken from us, we value ourselves by them, and it's catastrophic in the lives of people, right? So.
But you're right. I mean, to that point, if we're lucky to be on this planet another 30, 40 years, whatever, God's plan is, we're going to have tragedy. We're going to have unchosen suffering. And I want to be, able to rebound and make sure that, look what you've done. If you didn't continue to sow the seeds of potential that Tom Ryan had, you've impacted a lot of people's lives. I was at lunch yesterday with a person that was, business associate. And, he asked me about Johnny's wrestling career. And he said, was he just at Ohio State? What? I said, honestly, he was blessed, like a lot of, good high school wrestlers are, to have opportunities to, go to a lot of different, D1 colleges. I go, but when, when I had an opportunity to put him with Coach Ryan and saw that, 10 years, 30 years after he graduates from college, that he could be more like a Tom Ryan as a father, as a husband, as a human being. That's a situation I wanted to put him in. And again, if you would have checked out 15 years ago, you wouldn't have been there for, my kid, all the people's lives you've touched. So it does show, that's why I've always wanted you to come out with this stuff, because the person you are, the life you lead, you're not perfect, and you show it, and you get up every day and you choose the right suffering. And I love that.
Yeah. Thanks. You do too.
And Tom, so all that having said, that's why I'm so excited that you are one of our presenters at the 2020 Virtual Customer Service Revolution this October. Can you tell our audience some of the things that they can look forward to learning from you at the Revolution?
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I've followed it for years, and it's cool to be a part of it. I finally made it. Right, I feel like I made it big time. Right, I can get to speak at this thing. I've seen it many times. I'm talking about just I guess life suffering, chosen suffering, unchosen suffering. How to be elite, and maybe just some strategies that can help move someone forward. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I think your leadership skills are pivotal right now with getting rallying a team, a company, families around a vision. And making that vision so strong that it just you put that bulletproof vest on and you get through anything, right? It just fuels you.
Sure. 28 years of coaching Division I wrestling, you come across a lot of people in a lot of situations and a lot of scenarios, and this is firsthand information, right? This is firsthand testimony. This isn't theoretical. These are things that people I've met and lessons you learn from them and ways to lead and build culture. So again, I'm looking forward to it. I'm honored to be a part of it.
So professionally speaking, you got a lot of accolades, right? You were a runner-up as a NCAA champion wrestler. You have coached, so many national championship wrestlers. You won a national championship. Is it safe to say that speaking at the Customer Service Revolution is probably the pinnacle of your professional career?
Well, I'm excited about it. I'll say that. I'm excited that you want me to speak and that, that I finally made it to the big time. I mean, I'm excited. Yeah.
More than I want you to speak, Tom, I think, so many people need to hear this. The book, Chosen Suffering. We're going to have a link to it where you can get it at chosensuffering.com, as well as how you can, stay in contact with Coach Ryan and follow him on social media. This book that has just come out is going to explode, and it's really going to have a big impact on people's lives. I got a front row seat. Tom, I got to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay. I'm not good at this, but go ahead.
That's
My
right.
life's pretty
These
simple.
are tough.
I don't know. Yeah.
So,
all right, go ahead.
Yeah, they could define your career. If you need to tap out, you can.
All right. Throw them at me.
Actually, before we get into that, what do you want your legacy to be, Tom? What's all said and done?
Yeah, I would say that someone that really knew how to love people, and someone that knew that the end is the beginning.
Love it. Who's better, Superman or Batman?
Oh, geez.
Told you these are tough.
Superman. My wife loves Batman, so I think Superman, but she loves Batman. I'll go Superman.
All right, good. I agree with you, but don't tell her. I've often said if I had to get into a tussle with you or Lynette, I'd rather get a tussle with you.
No question. I wore a Batman costume on Halloween one time, and she really liked it. So
you still have
anyway. It? I do actually.
Do you believe in the designated hitter or let the pitcher bat?
Oh wow. I like runs. I'm gonna go designated hitter.
Yeah.
I'm an American League guy. I'm a Yankee fan.
Yeah. Well, you grew up just outside of it.
Yeah.
Most influential person in your life?
Teague.
Oh, that's cool.
Teague Ryan.
I thought your dad would be up there.
He's up there. My brother's up there.
Yeah.
Dan Gable's up there.
All right. So I'd like to ask you this because, you're a health freak. Your last meal, right? This is it. And now it's not necessarily your favorite meal, right? like a salmon or something. It's a cheap meal, right? Because you don't care what you're going to look like in the Batman costume tomorrow.
Yep.
Fit into those tights.
Yeah. Oh man, give me a big giant massive bowl of ice cream. Throw some Snickers on there with some Reese's peanut butter cups and a little peanut butter topping, and then you got to throw some milk on there to just hold back on the richness a little bit. That's where I'm going.
Wow. What kind of milk? Whole milk?
I'll go whole milk.
Love it. You thought this out. This wasn't the first time you were asked this question.
No, that is the first time, but I know what I like.
Long or short shower?
Long.
Snooze or jump out of bed?
Jump out of bed.
Yeah. Best thing you ever binge watch?
I never have.
No.
I've never binge watched anything.
That's okay. Favorite quote?
Arson Fadzaya technique tapes. Probably Arson Fadzaya present.
Favorite quote? Well, didn't you binge watch The Last Dance? I assumed you binge watch that with Michael Jordan. You
know what? I heard that was incredible.
You got to watch that.
I heard that was incredible. Yeah. So
talk about choosing suffering. That's a binge watch.
Yeah.
Favorite quote ever?
Maybe not favorite quote ever, but it always sticks with me. To live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in that suffering.
Say it again.
To live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in that suffering.
Love that. Best book you've ever read?
Victor Frankl.
You've read a lot.
Oh man, best book I've ever read. Probably Man's Search for Meaning. Yeah, maybe Man's Search for Meaning. Yeah.
What is it? Frankl?
Victor, Frankl. Yeah, psychologist.
Yeah.
Survivor of the Holocaust.
What keeps you up at night?
Dang, just love. I mean, just making sure my life is filled with love and loving those around me. All
right, Tom, if your life is a book, what's the title of the chapter you're living right now?
Oh, wow. Dang. Blessed beyond measure.
Love that. Cool. Very cool. And what are you up to today? You're training for 2021 season? What are you up to? What are you doing? What's Tom Ryan doing right now?
Yeah. So, my routine has stayed similar, throughout the quarantine. I think, the things like you said earlier, the things that we can control, we got to control. And a lot of people will come out of the quarantine worse, and a lot will come out better. So I get up every morning, put my weight jacket on, I walk 5-6 miles, sometimes longer. Lately, I've been working on, we sold our house. I worked on the house, and now I'm working on the new house, preparing my team as much as I can for the information that we're getting, regarding the season, when it's going to start. Spending time with my kids right now.
Such uncertainty? How do you prepare kids?
Yeah.
With kids, my definition of kids, anybody 30 or younger, the 22-year-olds, 19-year-olds. How do you prepare and keep them motivated for something that may never happen?
Yeah, I think the perfect combination of optimism and realism, and it's called what? It's the
Stockdale paradox.
Oh my
paradox.
Yeah, Stockdale paradox. Thank you. I knew you'd know it. So Stockdale paradox. I think the perfect combination of optimism and realism, and knowing that. Listen, let's take worst case scenario. The wrestling season doesn't happen, right? That this year again we lose the wrestling season. Best case scenario, obviously, is that it happens. What we want to be ready for is the door's gonna. If the door opens, you better be ready to step through it, right? I think that's the big thing. Is just this is about you being the best you. And how is it that you being so fearful and worried there's not going to be a season, that you stop doing the things that make you better is going to be productive for you, right? So I think there's a lot of communication with our guys and sharing truth and just talking them through it, because, as you know, our negative nature can take over and it ain't happening. And the second we start saying to ourselves it ain't happening, habits change. You start being a lesser version of you. You start taking shortcuts, and the next thing you know, you're in a bad spot and the season happens. So just keep being the best you is a challenge for my guys.
Yeah, I asked that, because I got a junior in high school and the same thing. Yeah. And you just, how do you keep them focused? Because the sense of urgency can go away if you start thinking that there's a possibility, a good possibility, whatever the odds are at that day, that, what the heck are we training for?
And this is hard.
It's so hard.
This is hard, man.
And
we're on a roller coaster ride.
And so people understand. You said he lost his senior year. You didn't mean he lost a match. He
That's right.
Got his the NCAA is taken away from him. He didn't get to compete for a national championship. Tom, I have no idea. As a father, I would have been beside myself. I would have, been crazy that my kid got cheated, right?
I mean, he was right, and he was what? He was third, fourth, second at the NCAAs, 29-0, going into a ranked number 1 his senior year. He's going to win a championship. As you know, kids in the car. His dad had him in the car, drove him from clinic to clinic and camp to camp as a kid. Gets to Ohio State, all this suffering, and then in a whim, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's just gone. We were in the middle of practice, John. So one of the administrators came walking in and goes, "Listen, the season's open." I'm like, what are you talking about? And we were 11 days away. We were 7 days away. It was March 11th. The first whistle is going to blow in 7 days. 45,000 people are going to be the national champions this year. It was held in a football stadium, or was going to be held in a football stadium at Minnesota Stadium. Be the greatest crowd ever on a football field. Wrestling was going to blossom right before people's eyes. They're going to see something they've never witnessed. And it was gone. And what's just so beautiful about Colin and Luke and others is that, we talk about if it's only about the moment when your hand gets raised, you're missing the boat, right? If it's only about that one moment where the ref raises your hand, of course it's about that, but that's not what all it's about, right? That's the only thing it's about. And you have to find the love for it in the midst of it, that you're getting better through it. That I thought you said you wanted to be the best wrestler. Well, just because the nationals doesn't happen doesn't mean you're not the best wrestler, right? So it's just that mindset of I'm in this because I love it and I want to progress and I want to get better. And it sounds good until you got to live it, right?
Yeah.
And do it, right?
No,
everything sounds good.
It teaches us, perseverance, which is choosing suffering. I think it teaches us chosen suffering and unchosen suffering is all about perseverance.
Perseverance, yeah.
Not being able to get to wrestle that championship is worse than probably losing it in the last 20 seconds, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Right.
So, all right, Tom, I can't thank you enough for your time.
Yeah, good to be with you, man.
Being on the being part of the podcast, being part of the conference, and just the person you are. Thank you so much, Tom Ryan.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John. Good to spend time with you.
Have you registered to attend the virtual customer experience event of 2020? The Customer Service Revolution Virtual Conference takes place over 5 weeks in October. Today's guest, Tom Ryan, joins more than a dozen other thought leaders to bring you winning insight to reimagine and revolutionize for the year ahead. Register today at customerservicerevolution.com. We hope you enjoyed today's episode with the legendary coach and author, Tom Ryan. If you did, please be sure to like the Customer Service Revolution podcast and write a review. And to hear more episodes, subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening and being part of the revolution.